Welcome to EVTN News, everyone. Um, I was kind of laughing at myself a little bit when I came up with the thumbnail EVTN Weekly News. I thought, well, missed last week, so is it really weekly? But we're here today and we're going to have some fun. And actually, I started just a little bit early today because I heard some thunder in the distance and it seems like it's um, maybe in a different direction, headed in a different direction, but that doesn't mean that I won't get more thunder here. So um, maybe trying to evade the storm a bit. But anyway, you're here, I'm here, and um, thank you for watching. I am returning from 2 weeks off, so we'll have double the fun. So let's jump right into the stories that we missed 2 weeks ago and last week, maybe. So, it's LMNOP month in the secular world, and it's the Feast of the Sacred Heart in the Catholic world. And so, of course, the Jesuits, what are they celebrating? Well, yeah, you can probably figure that one out. And Slim Jim Martin is definitely going to be part of this. So, there's that. But we'll start with Pope Francis wrote a handwritten letter on June 1st, so first day of LMNOP month, to Lorenzo Michel Noe Caruso, age 22, a history student from Florence who was expelled from the seminary of the Diocese of La Spezia, I believe that's Spain, after revealing his LMNOP temptations with which he identifies. After Francis reportedly complained on May 20th again and again, May 20th, and he complained twice. And my thing just shut down, dang it. Hold on one second, this just shut down. Oh, man. Okay, so anyway, after Francis reportedly used LMNOP language that could be considered offensive towards LMNOPs twice, and even the need to expel LMNOP men from the seminary, Caruso told his story. He also wrote a letter to Francis, who replied immediately on. So this, I don't know which Saturday. I think it may have been. I don't know what. I'm not sure which Saturday. A week or so ago, a few weeks ago maybe, Francis wrote to Caruso and said, Do you know that clericalism is a plague? It is an ugly worldliness, and as a great theologian says, worldliness is the worst thing that can happen to the church, even worse than the time of the concubine popes. Jesus calls everyone everyone. Some people think that the church is a customs office where everybody is checked, and that is bad. The church must be open to everyone. Brother, continue with your vocation. So he encouraged an LMNOP to continue his vocation, which LMNOPs probably won't have it, but it's probably more of a desire to infiltrate. All right. So, and this is this is a story about Vigano. So Monsignor Carlo Vigano told LifeSite News that for now I don't need to elaborate further on his May 29th accusation that Francis was allegedly a practicing LMNOP and an abuser like McCarrick. The Archbishop made the accusation on Twitter. He didn't cite any evidence, saying only that he was given the information by one of Francis's former novices. So I'm not a fan of that type of accusations, just throwing it out there and saying, well, all right, I'm not going to say anything else. It's sort of like whenever Vigano accused, that's a little bit of a flip side of things, when Vigano accused Francis of covering up for McCarrick, and Francis said, I will not say one word. Well, you know why? As it turns out, what Vigano said was presumably true, and no one has proven him wrong. But on this, the burden of proof was on Vigano for suggesting this, so yes, he still hasn't said anything about it, and I kind of hope he will elaborate. If he has evidence, then let us know. I mean, really, it's pretty important at this point. Oh, and by the way, I'll address some rumors at the end, but stay tuned for that. There were some Latin Mass rumors today. uh, Returning to my topics here, approximately 20 theologians are in Rome for 10 days of preparatory work preceding the drafting of the guiding document for the next assembly of the Synod on Synodality, Synodalists. I don't know, how many times can you say synod? The June 4th to 13th closed door gathering of experts in theology, ecclesiology, and canon law is being held at the Jesuit General Curia down the street from the Vatican. The Secretariat of the Synod expects to release a document on the June meeting in early July. This initial text will prepare the way for the drafting of the document dubbed the Instrumentum Laboris II that will guide the work of the second session of the Synod on Synodality in October, Father Giacomo Costa, S.J., said in the June 5th press release. So, what I gather from this is that a group of theologians, well, who have already met and probably how they could implement women deacons and whatever LMNOP stuff that they like. And they're going to set that as the topic for the discussion on this, the synodal discussion in October, and then everyone's going to show up and say, oh, well, women deacons are a great idea, and Cardinal Mueller is going to say, no, it's a terrible idea, and then everyone else will say, well, you're just you're just stuck in the rigid past and all, whatever. So yeah, a recipe for disaster, but that's how women deacons is going to be implemented. One of the first steps, so it's in progress. Oh boy. All right, historic St. Paul Church in Lexington, Kentucky states that on the LMNOPQ Plus Ministry and Fortunate Families section of its website, it states that LMNOP couples who would like a blessing, please contact Father Richard. Shortly after the publication of Fiducia Supplicans, Father Richard Watson hosted and published a blessing of two women who were civilly married for 22 years while he wore an LMNOP rainbow stole. So this is the same priest. The website also features a highly blasphemous so-called prayer to the Mother of Pride, accompanied by a poster depicting the Mother of God wrapped in a rainbow-colored coat and holding a child, likely a depiction of Jesus Christ. So, yeah, nothing good there. But that's Stowe's diocese. And Stowe, I've been saying this every week, Stowe is probably in line for promotion, and we'll even discuss that in this next story. And he's one of 10 U.S. metropolitan bishops serving past the formal retirement age for diocesan bishops, which means that he can be he can be I don't want to say forcibly because they're required to resign or submit their resignation at age 75, and then most of them end up being replaced, I guess, very close to that age. As presbyterates in Boston, Kansas City, Cincinnati, and elsewhere wait to hear who will next lead them, speculation about bishops likely to be promoted has become a frequent topic of conversation. The Pillar suggested some guys, and a few of them, they suggested a few on the conservative side, and I kind of rolled my eyes because that's not part of the Francis Church. I mean, if you have a shred of Catholicism, then the Francis Church wants to beat it out of you. All right, so Pillar, they named a few guys though that I agree with. So Bishop Daniel Flores of Brownsville, Texas, age 62, is a synodal superstar, and so he could possibly receive a promotion. Now there won't be anything really in Texas. I think maybe Cardinal DiNardo in Houston at some point, but Bishop Mark Seitz, age 70, the Diocese of El Paso, Texas, is solely focused on immigration. Although he probably scored some Francis points when he suggested eliminating the divine praises from the rite of benediction, he's also a Biden bishop. One of the bishops who said Biden should not be denied communion, or at least the USCCB shouldn't determine collectively that someone who is in a public state of mortal sin should be denied communion. Bishop Sean McKnight, age 55, of Jefferson City, Missouri, so he's already in the Midwest. He's a Biden bishop, and he happened to block me on Twitter for pointing out he was hiding comments on a post that was probably unpopular. Actually, I honestly forget what he even posted about. But he blocked me on Twitter just for pointing out the fact that he was hiding comments. So, and I just did it in a very straightforward way. I said, this bishop is. I didn't even I didn't even say anything other than what I've said. He's hiding comments. That's what I said. Okay, and then Pillar suggests a few other guys, but the comments on the article, from the comments on the article, I found a comment that I think this commenter seems to be very close to what I think. He said, "I'm surprised who isn't on this list, namely those who would be left of center in the conference. I'm thinking Beegler, Stowe, Weisenberger. So Beegler is Wyoming. The whole state is a diocese. He's very much into the LMNOP stuff. And even more so, Bishop Stowe. And I think Stowe is setting up for Cincinnati. That's my call. That's how I see it. Stowe's even more into the LMNOP stuff. Weisenberger is also into the LMNOP stuff. I think he's early 60s. He is in Tucson, Arizona. So for Beegler and Weisenberger to be promoted somewhere, it doesn't necessarily exclude, or it doesn't necessarily prevent, just because they're not close to an open diocese doesn't mean they won't get the promotion. They can be promoted from anywhere to anywhere. Usually it's a little more regional to make it, to make the Francis Church seem less obvious that they're promoting blatant LMNOP activists. But Supich went from Spokane, Washington to Chicago, so anything's possible. Anyway, in his comments, he said perhaps they aren't distinguishing perhaps these guys aren't distinguishing themselves in their current sees, but it would seem this is an opportunity for Cardinals Supich and Tobin to shape the bench with those who shared their theological outlook, which is heresy. But Supich and Tobin are on the Bishops' Committee. Of course, the Francis Network is very small, as I've pointed out many times before. And everyone gets to basically serve in every department. Everyone in the Francis Church gets to serve in every department because the network is so small. Which raises the question of how much weight they carry versus Cardinal Pierre when names are presented to the Pope. I think Pierre and Supich and Tobin, that's the part I disagree. Pierre, Supich, and Tobin seem to be of the same mind. They all have the same priorities, and it's not the Catholic faith. Also, it's interesting that given one prominent Vatican watcher who has some uncanny success in breaking appointments has put forward Etienne's name for Boston, his name doesn't make the list. So Archbishop, I think it's Archbishop Paul Etienne. He is very much into the LMNOP stuff and really the Francis Church in general. He's fairly young and he's rose up the Francis ranks very quickly. I think Francis invited him to the Synod. So he's definitely in the Supich network for sure. And so he'll be a possibility for a promotion. And he could possibly be the next cardinal in the United States. I thought maybe Stowe might be, because Stowe's so radical. He's such a radical leftist. Definitely gives McElroy a run for his money, and that's who Francis seems to be appointing as cardinals anymore, as just the radical anti-Catholics. Speaking of radicals, Francis received LMNOP activist James Martin, a fellow Jesuit at Casa Santa Marta, on June 12th for an hour-long meeting. Afterwards, Martin wrote on Twitter, with his permission to share this, the Holy Father said he has known many good, holy, and celibate seminarians and priests with LMNOP tendencies. According to Martin, Francis also confirmed his LMNOP activism and showed his openness and love for those who practice LMNOP sin without repentance. So, it's interesting. He spoke. He specified celibate seminarians and priests. I think celibate just means not married, so that doesn't mean that. Anyway, yeah, priests can't get married anyway, so that doesn't mean much. But Martin's very deliberate with his words, and he's very much very sneaky. Particularly evil, honestly, but okay. So another thing from the pillar. Oh yes, you probably saw I posted a few video clips from the USCCB meeting. I don't have much of a reaction from it, but there were a few things that were publicized and not necessarily related to the USCCB meeting. But it's also possible. Who knows what happens, because they have they have extensive closed door meetings now, not open to the public, whereas just years most of it was public. Now it's mostly private. So I think they had meetings Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Thursday afternoon was live streamed and Friday morning was live streamed, so only 2 of the few hour sessions were publicized, and it was mostly presentations. There was minimal commentary from the bishops, and I did share with you the clips that I thought were interesting. Not that it really says much, but one thing is that several USCCB bishops have requested that the USCCB Canonical Affairs Committee provide guidance and direction on issues raised by the case of a diocesan hermit I spoke about a few weeks ago, who publicly identified last month as the wrong gender. So this was in Stowe's diocese. I think it was a woman who pretended to be a man, and I think she was, let's see, she received permission from Stowe to be a diocesan hermit, and I believe he affirmed her in her incorrect gender. Seemed like Catholic news agency used the right pronouns and the pillar did not. But it's very confusing because she looks like a man, and it's really, who knows? Who really knows? I mean, she's clearly psychologically, there's clearly something wrong psychologically. So I don't actually know what the real gender is. It seems as though she's a woman, though. Anyway, let's see here. Another thing that went on was Archbishop Tim Broglio told a press conference in all the discussions. He's the USCCB president right now. He said, in all the discussions, the bishop's ongoing commitment to the vital work of fighting poverty was clear in regards to the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, which doesn't fight poverty. It just funds LMNOP Jesuit initiatives and anti-Catholic ideals. Now, Ralph McLeod was in charge of the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. He was a layman, and he supported the radical pro-baby slaughter Wendy Davis in Texas. He was on her committee. Or he was the chair of her campaign for being elected. She was a politician, and she was a politician in Texas who supports the slaughter of the unborn. And he was the chair for her campaign, and then he was hired at the USCCB for the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, which is, I mean, Michael Hitchborn broke that story. That's a real scandal. And the USCCB really didn't seem to care, but now he's gone. I don't know if they got rid of him because, such a bad reputation. But of course, um, anyway, this article that I was looking at, several bishops told the fake news National Catholic Distorter that in the executive session where the Catholic Campaign for Human Development was discussed, the support for the program was overwhelming. Springfield, Illinois Bishop Thomas Paprocki intervened to suggest it was time to sunset the program, and his sentiments were echoed by Kansas City Archbishop Joseph Naumann. So Paprocki and Naumann, two bishops that generally typically stand on the support of the Catholic faith, on the side of the Catholic faith, I guess you would say. But Cardinal Joseph Tobin of Newark gave a powerful endorsement of the work of CCHD, and every other speaker echoed Tobin. So maybe Tobin's network, his Supich McCarrick network, um, maybe it was those corrupt bishops who spoke up in conjunction with Tobin, who is otherwise known as Nighty Night Tobin. It's just, these guys are just a scandal even existing. Like, really, I mean, come on. The fact that they're even presenting themselves in public is a scandal. It's just pathetic. All right, and I'm going to. All right, I'm getting this ready. So, the Diocese of Steubenville announced on Friday, Steubenville, Ohio. You probably know them from the Franciscan University of Steubenville. So the diocese announced Friday that Bishop Paul Bradley has been replaced as Apostolic Administrator of the Diocese of Steubenville, Ohio, and will be succeeded by Bishop Edward Lose of Kalamazoo, Michigan. The decision was framed in a diocesan announcement as a next step in the process of exploring a merger the Steubenville Diocese with the neighboring Diocese of Columbus, according to a press release issued Friday. So, this has been ongoing for quite a while, and it's highly unpopular with the people in Steubenville and the priests. But sources with knowledge of the announcement say that Bradley, the former bishop, was only informed of the decision to be removed of his removal by the Apostolic Nuncio Christophe Pierre this week, so last week, according to during a USCCB meeting in Louisville, Kentucky. So he showed up for the meeting, and they're like, "Well, all right, see you later. You're done." The decision came in response to Bradley's public opposition to the prospect of merging the Steubenville Diocese with Columbus. Several sources said, as Pierre reportedly continues to support the prospect of the merger. So this looks like the end of the Diocese of Steubenville, and it will be a template for other diocese mergers. The megadiocese may soon become a synodal result, the fruits of the new Pentecost and the Francis Church. And how will this shape up across the country? Are you from a small diocese? Because every diocese is at risk now, and archdioceses, I don't know. Some of them are pretty miserable failures, honestly. So how will it shape up across the country for mergers? And this one, the Bishop of Columbus seems very friendly towards the Latin Mass community. So it wouldn't necessarily, this specific merger wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, but if there are dioceses that are absorbed into other archdioceses, like, I don't know, if you have a particularly bad bishop, like Supich, and say like Paprocki, Bishop Paprocki, his diocese of Springfield borders Chicago, and so the diocese of Springfield, Illinois, could be absorbed into Chicago theoretically. I mean, it really depends. Of course, they could remove. By all means, I would expect that Paprocki's diocese would be in decent shape because he seems like a good bishop, and good bishops get good seminarians, and sort of like Strickland in Tyler, Texas. But then Paprocki could always just be kicked out, and a bad bishop replace him, and then, there could be mergers there. and absorb. So it's possible, or they could just have it absorbed and say, "Well, Paprocki's now an auxiliary bishop." Good. So that that takes all authority away from him. And yeah, but is your diocese in at risk of being absorbed into a different one or merged? Just a thought, something to consider. These things take a lot of time, but the Francis Church wants to. It seems that they want this to move quickly, and so they're kicking out a bishop who was not necessarily in support of the merger, and yeah, so that's what you get for opposing the Francis Church and the Francis initiatives. All right, so now I'm going to talk about, and I don't like to talk about rumors necessarily. I did talk about the rumor that Vigano started, and that's not very good. I don't like that he started that rumor and didn't finish it. But this rumor is so Rorate Caeli. I almost I almost hate to even talk about it, but Rorate Caeli said an attempt is imminent to implement another Vatican decree with a strict, radical, and definitive solution banning the Latin Mass. Rorate Caeli claimed that highly credible sources close to Pope Francis and Cardinal Roche told them this. Whoever runs the blog. Now, Rorate Caeli has been very critical of professional Catholics. That's fine. That's your prerogative. But he has been wrong on multiple predictions and multiple so-called facts. Rorate said several years ago that Pope Francis had terminal cancer, and I even ran a video, and I ate my words because I thought it was breaking news that Pope Francis had terminal cancer and he was expected to live just a few months, and that was several years ago. So clearly Rorate Caeli was wrong about that wherever he received his highly credible sources information, or his information from highly credible sources. And was it last year or the year before when we were told by Rorate Caeli that there would be a Latin Mass crackdown? I think it was him that ran this story that there would be a Latin Mass crackdown around Easter, like Monday of Holy Week. I think it was it last year. I don't know. I really don't know, but it didn't happen at all. Um, of course, he bragged about how he was right before. Yeah, you're right about some things, but not but you're wrong about certain things, and so I try I I don't take this necessarily seriously. Um, it is a rumor though, and with all rumors, you need to treat them accordingly. It probably started somewhere. Uh, so Rorate Caeli says they want to ban the Mass and close it down everywhere and immediately, and they need to do it while Francis is still in power. They want to make it as wide, final, and irreversible as possible. The Vatican ideologues who impose Traditionis Custodes are frustrated by its slow results, especially in the United States and France. Not really a surprise. Now, what could they do? Assuming, just for the sake of discussion here, I'd like to assume that Rorate Caeli's sources are actually correct. Just for discussion, that doesn't mean that they are, and that doesn't mean that this will happen, but I think it would be most likely if anything were to happen. Again, that's saying something will. I'm not saying it will, but if it does, then it would be probably ban. I mean, something like this would ban all diocesan Latin Mass. The Institute of Christ the King and the FSSP would probably be safe. Of course, the SSPX is obviously safe. Although I'm not happy about the molester that was their district superior in the United States. What did they know about it? So that's a different discussion, and maybe I'll bring that discussion up next week if I get more details on it. That was a pretty black mark on them, but they're immune from this. The FSSP and the Institute of Christ the King, would there be anything that would happen to them? Certainly the Mass wouldn't be banned universally, because then it would leave these religious orders in the, it would kind of leave them hanging out to dry. And I don't think that's going to happen. There would be, I don't know, but would there be large scale resistance? Who knows? Who knows if there would be? The Institute of Christ the King just Supich suspended them in Chicago, and so they just close down masses, and they don't do the sacraments. The only old rite sacraments you can get are with the SSPX. Or, well, I don't know. Maybe St. John Cantius does them, but I'm not sure. I don't know if they do in Chicago. So, yeah. Now, would the FSSP and Institute of Christ the King be banned from doing any other sacraments besides Mass? That's an open question, and something that may just be theoretical for the rest of existence, because this might actually be fake news, like sometimes our Rate Chile posts. And so we don't know, but I figured I would address it because other commentators will talk about it as well. But yeah, I think there's an ice cream truck driving past my house. It does sometimes, but anyway, talking about creepers, and there's an ice cream truck driving past my house. Anyway, the creepers in the Vatican. It's just such a sick network. I mean, really, just disgusting. But if they ban the Mass, oh boy. Oh boy. And that's all we have right now, because we don't have a Pope who has any interest in the Catholic faith. So that's it. All right. The thunder held off. Or maybe it passed. I don't know, but I did get some rain. I see that on the window. So, okay. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. We are the laity, and we will not be silent.